I can go first. I'm Sam. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns. Been at the ICANN network for like 8 months now, I think, and I do network leading and some online stuff too.
Cool. I'm Christian. I use he, him pronouns, and I've been at the ICANN network for 6 and a bit years. Yes. It feels like you've been here much longer than 8 months. Sorry, actually, Sam.
I think I started in May last year. I feel like I've been around for a while. It's very
you feel very established. So
I really want to dab, but I've been dabbing all day, and I have to really stop the habit.
Yeah. Hard to break.
Got to have your system. My name's Sharia. I'm 19 years old. My pronouns are they, them, and I've been with the ICANN network since July last year, but I've kind of been loosely involved for a few years now. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Okie dokie. Let's go into the first question. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and when you first noticed / discovered that your identity / preference wasn't the traditional norm? Christian, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So my it's really my preference that isn't the traditional norm would be my gay identity. Oh, well, yeah, preference and identity are really linked with this community as well. So I think I noticed it like late primary school, early high school. I mean, I say this, but a lot of this is kind of like me, like I fully sort of realized it, came to terms with it, came out, which we'll talk about later, but like when I was 19, starting university. So a lot of, and obviously since then, I've kind of gone through that process of like going back on old primary school memories, high school memories, and moments that I now see as like pivotal moments of realizing I was gay. I don't think were that way at the time. A lot of it's like retrospective, benefit of hindsight kind of thing. But it's so hard to draw a line because I feel like some of it is benefit of hindsight, but some of it is like me not in the very early days, just like not wanting to be different in that way because it seemed like such a difficult life to have. I mean, I've since feel very differently, but yeah, I think it was just a combination of I thought that life would be very difficult for me if I was gay, and also this sort of myth I had that like I was already autistic, so like that was already my difference, and I couldn't possibly have two. Yeah, it was that, and you know, a few other things that like you know, I think I just sort of like things I'd heard from people. I think like if you're autistic, like you find it difficult to process your emotions. Like what you think is like romantic feelings for this other guy is really just you being sort of really appreciative of them as a friend, or even other things like stereotypical things I'd heard from people, like people thinking that I was gay because of like my interests and the way I speak and the way I act and things like that. And I mean, it turns out that they were right about me being gay, but they were right for the wrong reasons. So like most things that they were wrong about, yeah, most of what they were thinking of me was actually wrong. And I just kind of came to the right answer at the end by accident. Yeah, it's a bit like if you solve a maths question and your whole method is completely wrong, but you guess the answer at the very end and it just so happens to be right. And you feel so smart and wise, but actually you're wrong about most things. And the one thing you got right might be the biggest thing, but you did it completely by accident. So yeah, so it was just all this I had to like kind of disentangle from myself to finally realize at 19 that I was gay. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Christian. Yeah, I can imagine it's that intersection of identities which is really complicated because it's so hard to unpack where one ends and the other one begins, if that even happens.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like the theatrical, I was just going to say before I let you go, Shady, sorry.
Right.
Like the theatrical hand gestures, like gay guy stereotype. I mean, it's kind of, it's like, it's basically my stimming, I've realized. Like, it gets read as like, the gay hands, or even like, the Greek hands, because I've got Greek grandparents. But it kind of is, I think it's my stimming, but also like other things. So yeah, like when hand gestures can just kind of get read as like evidence for this identity or that identity alone. It's, yeah, it was, I had to just kind of like let all those other people's voices out of my head and listen to my own voice to actually realize it.
Okay. What do you think, Shadia?
Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion, Chris. Well, my journey, I probably.
Hey, my name's not actually Chris. I always do this bad.
I was wondering that.
I can rename myself. It happens every time. Oh, it's not letting me change it. Just disregard.
Oh no.
Hopefully people will know that you're not Chris.
Trying to change.
But yeah, I guess I thought I was different to my peers from primary school, but it didn't occur to me to think about it further until high school. I think because I guess there are some intersections I see with my autistic brain and my LGBT identity, in the sense that most of my emotions that I processed in primary school were almost delayed in terms of the processing. So I experienced them at the time, but I only found the right vocabulary for them late teens. So I'm still unpacking some stuff now. So I think from that perspective, it took me a while to understand where I fit in the world. And sometimes when you've got both identities at the intersection, it can make it even more confusing. So I first noticed I was gender non-conforming probably around grade 8. And so in primary school, I always hung out with the boys. I did not understand the girls. I didn't feel like I was like the girls. I liked sport, all that sort of thing. And I assumed that that meant I wanted to be a boy because I didn't want to be a girl. So the only other option I knew was a boy. But then in grade 8, I realized that's not for me either. So maybe I just thought, well, there's nothing in between, so I must be one or the other. And then I was about 16 years old, and I read an article written by Ruby Rose, who's gender fluid, and she used that term and explained to, you know, how she felt and how her gender was different to other sorts of transgenders and identities. And I realized that this is what described me. So after that, it was a lot easier for me to unpack things. And I was like, oh, there actually is an in-between or a neither. And it was a bit of a revelation for me at that point, because I thought the gender was binary because that's what we're taught. So yeah, it was a really eye-opening moment and really helped me. And I shaved my hair. I started playing around with my expression and started also accepting myself and the fact that I don't have to fit in any box in particular. And I'm also pansexual, attracted to all genders, and I'm actually also on the asexual spectrum. It tends to be a stereotype that all autistic people are asexual, but I don't think I'm on the asexual spectrum, but not what is stereotypical. I think it's important to realize that, like what Christian said, we can actually have multiple identities and we're not just limited to one thing just because we're autistic. So that was a really interesting moment for me, learning that there are actually aspects of myself that weren't necessarily what people were seeing. So I got a lot of comments in high school, so are you asexual? And because I'd only been presented one form of it, not knowing it's a huge spectrum in itself, I went, well, no, I'm not that at all. But they assumed from how I presented myself outwardly that, oh, I must not be interested in relationships or anything like that, when it was definitely not the case. So yeah, I think it's something really good to be aware of, and thankfully there's a lot more research going into the intersection a bit more deeply. But yeah, we're just like anyone else. We can have multiple differences and identities. We're not all the same. be pretty boring if we were.
Definitely.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing that. I think I resonate with what you're saying about being in primary school and kind of hanging out with all the boys and like identifying. Like I also like I identified. I always knew that I was like a tomboy, and everyone always everyone told me that, and then it wasn't until I think when I hit high school, and then kind of hit puberty that I started to really um, I think I kind of forgot about my gender identity a bit. Like I just wanted to fit in so much that I would just like copy. I was hanging out with all these girls, and because that's just the way that friendships kind of went at my school. And so I just hung out with them and did everything that they did and tried to like get interested in all these kind of aspects of being a teenage girl that I found really, I think, uncomfortable with at the same time. And I think it impacted like my mental health because I just wanted to fit in. And because I was going through puberty and my body was changing and stuff, it was kind of like in primary school, it was fine. And I could kind of, I was just one of the boys and it wasn't a thing. But then once you get to high school, like people start, noticing you differently and stuff and treating you differently. And so I think that I really struggled at that time and I kind of forgot about that I had autonomy over my gender identity. And I think that it wasn't until really I left home when I was 18 and moved up to Melbourne to go to uni that I started to feel a bit more comfortable actually playing around with my gender expression. Having a shaved head and stuff as well is like a big part. And yeah, I think I definitely felt I grew up in a kind of smallish town, so I think I really felt those pressures of trying to, like just the traditional gender binary like rules. And so I really kind of struggled with that, and I think that really stressed me out. And so I realized kind of for the second time, I'd heard about people talking about non-binary in like Facebook groups and stuff, and I kind of identified with that. I was kind of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I first heard about people using they them pronouns, and I was like, yeah, I think I would do that. And yeah, I realized that I kind of identified that way. And I think my sister once told me, she was like, you're non-binary. And I was like, yeah, I guess I am. And I still kind of identify that way. I think my gender identity is like, I kind of think of myself as like, I don't know, just genderqueer or something.
Yeah.
And I'm still like exploring my gender and I enjoy doing that. I think it's fun and it gives me a lot of kind of joy being able to feel like I can kind of play around with it. And in terms of like my sexuality, like I think I probably can as well. Like I don't really, I feel like my ideas around the way that the model of like gender and relationships that I have in my mind has never really seemed to sync up with the traditional norm. Like I think I've always kind of known that it's been a bit skewed, just because because I've always struggled with just kind of understanding that side of things. I think when I got diagnosed on the spectrum, it made me rethink heaps of things again. Like it made me kind of take 2 steps back and wonder if I was off because I was autistic and I just didn't get it, or if it was because I am queer. And I find it really hard to kind of tease apart. And I think that probably it's both. I think that it's just a combination of things, which is why
I definitely think it's a combination for me as well, because for example, with the pansexual identities, like, if you're it tends to be a thing that we autistic individuals are very social justice driven and things. And it's my innate views not to judge people by their outer shells and not to connect. And I don't connect with them in that way. I connect to people on a deeper level, emotionally, platonically or otherwise. So it's interesting that it's, like, I'm still, like you, Sam, I'm still trying to work out where it is, but I think in that sort of instance, I think it is connected because it's linked to my views and who I am, and I really like this term that's been used in the neurodivergent community to show the linkage, and it's called gender vague, and I really like that.
What's it called, sorry?
It's called gender vague, and it's a term used for
yeah.
neurodivergent, non-binary people. So I really like that. Yeah. And I don't know as a perfectly good gender or sexuality as well.
Yeah. Definitely. I don't think I'll. Oh yeah, sorry, Christian.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I've met some autistic. I think if they heard about gender vague as a label, I think they'd probably would be likely to embrace that, because I've only just heard of that now from Shadia. But yeah, I've heard of like quite a few. I think mostly autistic and non-binary people who just don't really. Yeah, basically like all the socially constructed aspects of gender. Just, I mean, we're talking about autism and sort of social norms. They're two things that, well, I suppose like, so many social norms just kind of collapse under the weight of like autistic thinking, or, so many autistic minds just kind of, you feel like your innate sort of like instinct is just to do your own thing. When you come up against like all kinds of social norms, including gender-related ones. So that just kind of renders all of that a bit. I don't know. I've just heard some people say that they don't get gender, or they don't get the social aspects of gender. So like agender or genderless people, they just don't. It's like it's a social construct they just don't buy into. So it's just not really a part of their lives. So yeah, which is I think it's more and more people talking about that now, which is great. More and more genderqueer and neurodivergent people, which is terrific.
And I think even in terms of like scholarly research, like in academia and universities, they're starting to recognize non-binary genders as something that is a thing. There's an actual phenomenon, and they're engaging more in discourse in the area, and there's like lots of, I think, there's research kind of going in that direction. I'm going to jump to the next question because I think we could, we can talk for hours about this. Definitely, there's so much to unpack. But let's see what we got. How about changes? All right. Can you tell us about your experience of letting people in your support network know about your identity? Christian, do you want to jump into this one?
Yeah, sure. People in my support network, I think just I did it very slowly. So as far as, I'm pretty sure my sister was actually the very first person I told, in private as well, because we were quite young at the time. The kind of stage of life where like you don't get that many time away from other family members because you're that young, but because I just kind of took that opportunity, and then slowly told like other family members. I believe the first friend I actually told might have been Chris Varney, isn't the real Chris Varney, not like Sam, who's currently got the label Chris Varney on this webinar. Yes, fully enough, over a dinner conversation. So I think just like very, very, it's funny thinking back to that now. Very, very slowly, just as I felt comfortable, and sort of the people it's really all about trust. So the people I sort of trusted with that information as much as possible. This isn't about my support network as such, but more about letting people know. I remember the very first family member, very first friend, very first stranger I told as well, because I feel like that's kind of another big thing, was like orientation week at my university, just actually going up to like the student union's queer stand and like talking to the queer officers, on just introducing myself to the queer officers, like signing up for a mailing list or something. I just remember, signing up for the mailing list. Pretty simple, but I just remember that was like the first action I took as a queer person, and also the first strangers I told. And you know, it's quite a substantial thing, like actually, like, you know, signing your name on a list of a list of queer people at this particular university. That was the first like concrete sort of action I remember taking that kind of confirmed that this was real for me, and I'd fully accepted it, and it was a reality at that point.
How did it feel? How did it feel when you signed up, when you took that action?
It felt, it felt like a relief. It felt, because like telling people, like people who, you know, didn't know me, so didn't know me before, like basically didn't know me when they when I sort of still thought I was straight, or was even still telling people I was straight. So they just kind of, they didn't know any of the backstory, so they just kind of saw me as a queer person, like as a gay guy in this case. It was just kind of, it was a huge relief, because it really felt like I could kind of let go of all of that baggage, and just kind of be who I was, and not have to keep going over like the same kind of mental cycles of, I mean, like obviously questioning is like a very important stage, and in some ways I think it's probably even harder to come out as questioning than as anything more specific than that. But I mean, it's still a difficult period. So it did feel good to be sort of out of the questioning phase, and to be certain, because it has its own struggles. But at the same time, I do think like any queer space should be very, very welcoming of questioning people, because yeah, it never really fully ends. But any kind of certainty you have is a good thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm putting myself on mute from time to time because there's all these cockatoos flying past. So they're so ridiculously loud. Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that point. Like, yeah, coming out as questioning can be really hard as well, and sometimes more so.
Yeah, because sometimes people just really want to, like, that they're more not knowing, or them knowing that you don't know is even more uncomfortable than you knowing. Even if they're telling you, like, you know, I'm okay, like, you know, I'm okay with whatever you are. I just need to know what you are.
Yeah,
You can't tell them if you don't have like a solid, simple, like totally 100% certain identity to give them yourself, because you yourself don't know it.
Yeah.
That can, it's becoming better now, but certainly I think certainly a few years ago that would really freak some people out, even while meeting people, because for whatever reason they just have this need. A lot of people have this need to know.
Yeah, I want to answer straight away. It doesn't always work like that.
Yeah, because I think it's that wanting to put people in boxes thing. And if you can't put someone in a box, then it's like you're not sure how you're supposed to act towards them. I feel like that's a common kind of thing, and that's probably why, that might be also why, like, coming out as questioning can be so hard, because you're saying, like, I don't know what box I'm in, so it kind of leaves it up to the perceiver, the person that you're talking to, and it's like how they're perceiving you. If you don't know what box they're putting you in, then that makes me feel uncomfortable sometimes. I think that's something that I've kind of worked on not trying to worry about that, and, like, you know, staying in my own head and not trying to get into other people's heads. And get like stressed out about that. What do you reckon, Shadia?
Yeah, I really agree with what Christian said. I was just thinking about it, and yeah, there's such an emphasis on trying to find the answer. I think sometimes people get uncomfortable with it, and this is what I've come to understand over time. I remember I told someone, oh, I think I actually am non-binary, and they just didn't get it. They couldn't understand why I couldn't just be a girl and be fine with being a girl, and do I hate girls, you know, everything. And they said, but girls can be masculine too. And it's like, it's not the point of why I'm non-binary. This is more than just me making a label for myself. It's my way of relating to other people. And I understand that for some people it is really confusing, and it's funny because my black and white sort of way of looking at the world meant that I also put myself in boxes as well, which meant that it took longer for me to work out that I was LGBT, because I watched documentaries about these trans people that knew that they were trans when they were 3. And I just thought, well, that's not me, because I haven't felt that way. And, you know, I'm not like that. But then when I start talking to more people, they said, oh, it's very individual. And I realized, oh, yeah, it's actually, every experience is valid, no matter what background you come from, no matter how long you felt this way. It's all valid. And I think having a really good support network is really helpful for that, because I came out to my family pretty early. They were the first ones I came out to. Not all of them, but the ones I've come out to have been pretty supportive, which has been great. I spent a little more time with my friends, because obviously you don't know friends as well, and you don't know how much they know about the community. But I did tell the ones that had already told me. They said to me, "You're bi or pan, and you're non-binary." I went, "Oh no, I'm straight. I'm a girl." And then a few years later, I went, "Yeah, you were right," and they just thought it was really funny. But yeah, it takes time to work out, and I think there was also fear for myself of getting my identity wrong, and I'm like, well, I better not say anything yet, because what if I get it wrong and then have to tell people I was wrong? And I was really scared about what would happen. And that's, again, my kind of black and white thinking, that's not right. You must have this identity, and it's your identity for the rest of your life. But then I realized, oh, it actually doesn't work that way, and it evolves over time, and it can evolve over time. And that's valid as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
I think I relate to the thing that you were saying when about it's how you're expressing your identity in these words, in these ways, can be how you relate to other people. Like it's not just a label, and it's not just some really shallow thing that like sits on the surface of your skin. It's like it's something really, really deeply you. And I find that too, like, yeah, like, because like I put lots of pressure on myself to try and find like the right label. And I think especially my gender identity, I think like my sexuality, I don't mind so much. It doesn't trouble me so much, and my gender identity not so much anymore. But at the beginning of my kind of journey, when I first, I suppose I should say as well, like I first really came out as trans when it was only like maybe 3 years ago now. I'd seen Trump. I get to blame Trump for it. I saw he banned transgender people from the army, and then there was this YouTube video which had all these trans people talking about it from the army, trans people in the army. And I was watching the video, and I was like, oh, this is like, I saw these guys, and I was like, oh, what are these guys doing here? And I got confused, and then I was like, wait a minute, is trans man like a thing? I'd never really heard of it before. Never heard of the term. And I didn't realize that I didn't realize that you could have hormone therapy. And so like I did all this research, and like jumped on Google, and I like couldn't get off like 48 hours, just like looking at all this stuff and watching all these videos. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's me. Like I felt something that I could really relate to this, to a gender identity. I was like, I never felt so, like represented, I think, on screen. It was really, really exciting for me. And yeah, I found it like go on hormone therapy. And, that was really, really cool. And it was really, really exciting. And so the first people I came out to was my housemates at the time. I lived in like a queer house, which was really good. And so I, messaged all my friends, and my friends who were almost also my housemates, and told them. And it was really tricky. The first time it was really, really hard to say, and like, I cried and they cried and stuff, and it was all very like emotional. But it was afterwards I felt like just this, I felt this huge relief. I thought that in my mind, I was like, I'll tell them, and then I'll go back to my room and I'll regret it, and then it will be fine and it will all be over, and it will just have been some weird kind of ride. But I got back to my room and I just felt so good, like I felt so relieved and so understood and so seen. And so I told my dad, and that went quite well. And then I told my mom, and that went like not so well. My mom was really blindsided by it. She was really like, she was really kind of confused by the whole thing, and I don't think she has very traditional. And I think that now she's kind of become more understanding and more, she kind of gets it more. But at the beginning, I found it really hard to be open with her because I just felt like she didn't understand, and that was really tricky. I think that was probably the hardest part about the whole experience. The rest of it was incredibly positive. I found going to the doctors to be quite easy, and all my friends were really supportive, and the rest of my family was really supportive. And my mum's, I think she had that fear of like, oh, this is going to make life really hard for you. I'm just worried about your life now being trans. But she didn't realize that the hardest part was her attitude. Like her having that attitude was the most difficult thing. But yeah, she's definitely kind of come around to it now. And it's been a couple of years, and I think my identity has become less, like when I first came out, I was like, I'm trans male, I'm a trans man. But then over time, I've definitely realized that I'm a lot more kind of in the middle somewhere. And like I spoke to my grandma about it, and she was really good as well. She's very much like, just don't put pressure on yourself to know, like it's fine. She was like, if you, if you, like, it doesn't matter which direction you go, if you want to turn around and go back, or if you want to keep going forward, if you want to take a step like left or right, she said it's fine, like we'll always be here for you and stuff. So that was really like nice and helpful thing to say. And I think I always remember that. Do either of you have anything extra to add on to that question?
I guess another thing I would say, we kind of brought it up, but I think having health professionals in your life that understand both the autism aspect and the gender side is really important, because when you're trying to unpack things and process stuff, and you have an autism specific professional that doesn't necessarily get the gender intersectionality, and then conversely going to a gender specific professional who may not know how best to communicate. I think it's important finding health professionals that have an experience of both, and I think there are more like this out there now, but I think having adequate support in that area is really important. And I really related to what you said, Sam, about the YouTube videos and like online stuff. I found it really helpful following trans people online, non-binary people online, and just learning more about our community. And I'd actually send my friends videos when I didn't really have the mental energy to try and explain what I was going through. And for some of them, it really helped them understand me more. A lot of them were LGBT themselves or neurodivergent, so it wasn't really that difficult for them to understand. Sometimes they needed more clarification, but they were really understanding. It's kind of funny how you're drawn to certain people even before you realize why you're drawn to those people in the first place. You just seem to find like-minded people like you, and you find out later down the track and you go, that's funny that happened that way.
Yeah, I think about that with my friendship group, where we all ended up being queer, but we all became friends. We didn't know that. And over time, it's nice. Kristen, you're going to say something as well.
Oh yes. So my experience coming out to my parents is actually very similar to yours, like almost exactly the same. But yeah, it's obviously good. Like, yeah, family's a tricky one because obviously you can't choose your family, so it's sort of it's very much a case by case. So like some some will they'll all react to it in different ways, and I do have some very old relatives that I just don't think it wouldn't really be worth like putting them under. I think the impact on their health, if I was to even try and explain it to them or tell them, just would be too great. And they're just so old now that there's not much point like causing them so much distress. But it's really much a case by case. But obviously with friends, if friends are just terrible about it, I mean, as much as it sucks to lose a friend, the really obviously the true friends, the good friends will understand. I should say, we'll try their best to understand and trust you, basically. So, even if every detail doesn't make immediate sense to them, they'll at the very least, be able to trust you that trust that you know what you're saying. Even if they can't totally get inside your head and inside your heart and all of that. So yeah, there is that does kind of make it easier that you can choose your friends, and that like if you've chosen to be friends with someone, you know them well enough to know that they'll support you when you do come out to them.
That's a really good point, Christian. I was just thinking about it, and in terms of the whole family friends thing, part of my family is Middle Eastern, and so I guess the cultural aspect of that also affected how many family members I came out to. And I think, again, it's another intersection that you see discussed more online. And I guess I brought it up just to be aware of some individuals who may need more support, who may come from different cultural backgrounds and, other backgrounds that may need additional or different support as well, and for their families. But yeah, I think with friends, it's a funny thing because I kind of have now learned the difference between them accepting me and messing up. So with my pronouns or whatever, and simply not wanting to get me and not accepting me. And I think over time, when you realize how much that affects your mental health for the people who don't accept you, I'd rather someone accept me and mess up a few times than not accept me and say the right things. So I think sometimes you have to make that tough decision to let that person go if they're affecting your mental health. But yeah, it was really funny because I came out to my grandparent I've been very close to all my life, and I was very nervous about what he would think, and he went, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, oh, okay, that was done. I was expecting this big, oh, what's that about? And I was like, oh, all right. And then we just continued our conversation as normal. So yeah, sometimes you build it up in your head and it's not as bad as you thought it would be.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a really good experience. Yeah, I think that there's enough understanding, there's enough like general baseline understanding in the world mostly now that at least people are at least aware. They're at least aware of that gender identity is diverse or can be diverse, or people, it's at least talked about, I think, in this day and age, which makes it easier. I think that I would have really struggled to come out if I realized I was gender divergent, maybe like 5 years ago. Even like 5 years ago, I think I would have really struggled because I don't think I would have been able to back myself, and I would have, I don't think that I would have enough, I don't think my self-esteem was big enough to be able to come out, basically. So part of me is like relieved that I didn't really realize until I was a bit older. But part of me thinks I was probably also in denial. I think I refuse to think about it. But yeah, definitely since coming out to people, I feel like my quality of life has just improved heaps and heaps. I feel so much more, even if people don't get it, at least I feel like I'm being honest to myself around other people. and that makes me feel yeah, like happy in my own skin.
It's starting to unmask and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, the amount of extra energy that I have, I think, because I'm not so caught in my head, like thinking about gender stuff. That's not to say that I don't think about it at all. I still do. Think about it from time to time. And there's some weeks where everything will make me think about it. And then there's other weeks where I won't think. And that just kind of, goes up and down depending on what's in the news or what's around or, who I'm hanging out with. But yeah, I think the experience overall has been just like a nice upward slope. All right, I'm going to jump to the next slide. What advice would you give to parents when their child is disclosing for the first time? Christian, do you want to go first? I'm happy to go first if you'd rather.
Oh, sure, yeah. I can jump in. So I think I'm gonna say now the grandparent reaction that Shada was just talking about. Yeah, do that. Like, there's no real like big reaction you have to have. Big emotional. I mean, if you do. Like Sam, you're talking about how like you were crying, but also your friends were crying when you came out to them.
In a positive, yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if it's like if you like if that's what you're feeling, like happy for the person that they've just come out. Don't like feel like you have to hold back those tears or hold back that joy or anything like that. If you've got like a sort of like a big positive reaction, great. But yeah, you don't. I think some of the best reactions I've gotten, they're not specifically from parents, just from anyone, have been just like the non-reactions, just like, okay, yeah, I heard, understood, all right. Like you don't really, if you can't think of anything to say, you don't actually have to say anything. Just as long as I know you've heard and understood. I mean, don't just go completely silent on someone when they're being that vulnerable to you. But if you feel like you should say something and all that's coming to your mind is just like ridiculous sounding things, or like this celebrity was also like like, oh right, so there's this movie or like any sort of, I don't know, if that this compare like if all that's coming to your mind is like sort of I don't know, like fairly far-fetched stuff that's like just kind of outside of your relationship with this person, don't feel like you have to overdo it. You can just have a natural reaction.
Do you agree with that, Shadia?
Sure. I think for some parents, from what I've heard, like, working with parents and stuff, some of them have already suspected it beforehand anyway. When you get to know your child, it's pretty easy to pick up on when something's not quite, what you thought, I guess. So maybe they're hiding something or struggling. So if you ever suspect this at any point, my suggestion would be to get all your questions out there by looking online for resources. There are tons of great organisations out there that provide resources on trans and gender diverse individuals, queer individuals. Amaze has actually recently come out with a resource booklet on queer autistic individuals. Minus 18's another really good one. They've done some work on that as well. Y Gender and Transgender Victoria, I follow those organisations, and they have a lot of young people speaking about their experiences. And so there's some of the resources that might help you if you've got any questions or want to learn. And follow advocates that are LGBT and learn more from them as well, because personal experience is really valuable.
Yeah.
I think before anything else, when they tell you it's a really vulnerable and risky and they're confiding in very important information to them, and it is taking a big risk. And I think that's a positive thing. It shows that they're comfortable with you and that they trust you. So I think from that point of view, it's great that they've had the courage and felt safe enough to come out and share their identity with you rather than hiding it. So I think that's really important to reassure them. First off, thank you for telling me. I'm happy to support you in any way. As Christian said, it doesn't have to be a major thing. It doesn't have to be something like a gender reveal party or something. I think it's also like, don't panic. Don't try your best to just stay calm in the moment and be present. I think the main messages that the child should receive is that they're accepted and loved, I think.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't worry too much about their identity and expression. I know that's something that comes up a lot. I'm worried that my child won't be this identity, or maybe they've got it wrong or anything. I think the main thing to focus on is just supporting them in the moment and reassuring them that they'll be there for anything, whether they go through with the transitioning, whether it changes, maybe they'll revert back. It's not necessarily a linear process. So just be reassured of that. And I think having, again, examples of queer advocates out there and celebrities and things can be helpful for children to know that they're not alone. And there are some really successful people out there who are queer. So yeah, that'd be my main points.
Yeah, really well said. And thanks for giving some resources as well. There's one more that I would add to that, but that was a very good list. Rainbow Families Victoria, they're really good as well. I think they do lots of, they also do like events and things, so that's good for, especially for parents that want to get involved kind of in the community and kind of engage with it. But yeah, I think both of what you both said was really spot on. Not making it a huge deal, thanking them for feeling comfortable sharing, because it can be a really big thing and it can be really scary and daunting. And yeah, letting your child know that you will support them no matter what, and that you're happy to help them to explore, and you're happy for them to lead the way, and you trust that they will do know what to do, and we'll figure it out, and just kind of let them know that you'll be there behind them the whole way, backing them on. I think, I definitely wish that my mum had been more like asking me questions, not for her to know the answers, but asking me questions to like help me think about things, and like ask them in a really open and non-judgmental way, just so that I knew that she was listening and was kind of understanding and was curious, but in the right way, in a kind of excited kind of way, because it is exciting. It can be a really exciting journey exploring gender identity. I find it incredibly fun, and you learn heaps. It's like, a totally different way of seeing the world, and especially because there can be so much annoying stuff out in the media, and just like in day-to-day life. Like, it's really important to have a safe person that you can just vent to at the end of the day, and someone who can say like, just have your back, and say, it doesn't matter. I don't mind how you identify. It doesn't change how much I love you, kind of thing. I think that's really important. And yeah, acknowledging that it does make life, it can make life more difficult, but also it can make life really vibrant and exciting and fulfilling. And yeah, also like engaging with role models, queer role models as well, especially autistic queer role models, who I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's heaps.
Aaron Ansawini's one of the main ones I can think of.
Hey?
Aaron Ansawini's a really good autistic trans YouTuber.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Oh, Nevo Zinzin. They're not autistic, I don't think, but they're non-binary, and they're a big, they live in Melbourne, and they're a big trans advocate and a really open, and I think they've written a book as well, Finding Nevo, which is about gender identity, and I think that's yeah, it's good just to read about other people's experiences as well. Like educate yourself. You don't have to rely on the child to do
Mm,
everything. They're not going to know everything about their identity either. You know, they're not going to know everything about the transgender experiences or some blanket thing or the queer experience. Um, More broadly, it's
mm,
it's yeah, like there's plenty of resources out there. So I think the more you can kind of read about, especially other individuals' experiences, um, I think that's really, really valuable. Just getting insight and building up your own
mm.
perspective. Is
Wen
there,
Lawson's another great one too, and
ah,
he's through the ICANN
Mm,
network as well.
yeah,
mm,
and Yen Perkis as
Mm.
well, also involved in the ICANN network. Um, who else? There's probably more. Us as well.
oh yeah.
Hello.
Then was just
Yeah.
gonna go to Dab again. Okay.
Yeah.
Do either of you?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I just want to say, yeah, last thing on this question. Um, I guess the key thing is really like focus on your child in how you respond. Um, Try not to. It can be such an easy thing to sort of slip into, but like avoid like thinking of other people, as in the whole like what other people will think of your child.
Mm,
Avoid thinking of yourself. I mean that everyone finds that hard to do because everyone's self-centered to some degree. But yeah, in terms of like I just know like some some parents when the child's come out to them as like a different sexuality, they've sort of gone straight to like thinking of grandchildren. When you're thinking of grandchildren, you're obviously you're not saying like children, your children's children. You're thinking of like, oh, but my future grandchildren, which I won't have from you. Like that's thinking of yourself. Um, so yeah, like rather than rather than sort of going off like think of your child and think of a child in that moment. Yeah,
mm,
don't go to like future imaginary children and grandchildren or like these other people out there and what they may or may not think of
mm,
your child once they start sort of expressing themselves in a different way.
Yeah.
Or yeah, I'd say like anything outside. Just yeah, stay in the moment, stay focused on your
mm.
child, and what they need from you right then and there.
Yeah,
And because yeah, the rest can wait, really.
that's a really important point actually,
Mm,
because yeah, that kind of it's interesting because Sam, you probably have seen this as well, particularly in the bisexual community and the pansexual community. It's kind of this thing of, well, why can't you just choose the opposite gender? That will make life easier for you. But
mm,
I think we can't always stop other people's views of us. And if we have a supportive network in place and we have people who accept us and love us, then that kind of becomes irrelevant anyway. It'd be like worrying about other people not accepting my autistic identity and, going, oh, well, I might as well mask it because maybe that will, someone might not like it and everything. So I think if we've got a supportive network, it kind of creates a safety net for us. And try your best. I know it's a valid worry, but yeah, try your best not to think that far in the future and to just focus on your child and supporting your child through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. There's so much opportunities and different options for people that it doesn't have to be, especially at this time that we're living in. There's just there's there's just so many. There's such a huge range of options, and I find personally that the majority of people that I interact with, living, working in a progressive workplace, living in a kind of progressive suburb, which I get that not everyone is able to do, but I find that that where I live is really queer and very kind of visibly queer friendly, and so I find that really even just seeing like shops having the little rainbow flag on the
Mm,
windows. And in the CBD, sometimes there was one at one point where all these office workers started wearing rainbow lanyards, and that was around the same time that I was starting to come out as trans to people.
mm,
Even just something as small as that made me feel instantly really safe,
yeah.
instantly a lot more comfortable in my identity. Just like those tiniest little acts of solidarity are incredibly empowering. And you never know, you never know who's going to see it and who's going to feel good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that goes for yeah, obviously like any community, any difference in that way, but yeah, equally so for neurodiversity. Like I know one of the things I found sort of confusing about this idea that I could be both queer and autistic is that like queer events seem to be, most of the queer events, at least sort of a few years ago, like when I was in undergrad, was so like emphasis was on like noise and crowds and like lots of body contact and lots of color everywhere, and all the autistic events that I came across were the complete opposite. Reduce the noise, reduce the color, reduce the contact, reduce the crowds. So I thought that like, oh my gosh, I have to pick a team. Like these are, they're like, it's like, this is what the spectrum is. And like, these are like, it actually felt like there was a spectrum of like autistic to queer. And I had to find my place along that, which is, I know, like terribly ironic, but yeah, it's just, I think slowly they're sort of coming together now. But I know it's a bit of a, it's a bit of a struggle when like you go to, an event for one community and like you feel like, half of yourself is welcome, but the other half isn't. Yeah.
You feel a bit like an outsider still, like you go into and you go, I don't feel like I quite fit here.
Yeah. I know. It's
it's very, it can be really tricky to navigate. I think Hannah Gadsby summed up,
yes.
of course, another queer and
there you go, Hannah Gadsby. I'm wearing a top today, actually.
I like it when she said like, when I was watching like Mardi Gras on TV and I thought to myself like, where do all the quiet gays go? What about the quiet gays? And I think that was very well said. There is one more source that I'll recommend, which is Spectrum Intersections, which does like a meetup once a month, and it's for people who are queer or questioning, and also on the spectrum neurodivergent. And that's, I went to one, and it was great. I've always been meaning to go to more, but it is a conflict with my previous extracurricular activities. But I strongly recommend that for anyone who is just wanting to hang around other people who share the same intersection of identities, because I think that has been really important for my identity, like sense of belonging, meeting other people and being, oh, you're my people, in more ways than one, which is really exciting.
There's a lot more of us than people realize, I think. Yes. Yeah, you need those examples of like personalities that mix both. Otherwise, I know, I think I was growing up with like so many personalities of like so distinctly just one or the other. Yeah.
All right, do we have another question? Yes. What would your one piece of advice be for a person struggling with their identity?
A lot of what we'd already. Oh, okay, yeah. I might as well go first for the very last one. A lot of what we've already been saying, but that you don't have to know everything right now, or even at any point in the future, because knowing everything about yourself is a very tall order. And I think even for cishet people, as in cisgender heterosexual people, I'm sure even. I mean, yes, I'm not one of those people, but I'm sure even they don't know everything about themselves. So, it's struggling with your identity is a very, very normal thing to do, very common, and it's just not talked about as often as it happens, nearly as often as it happens.
Awesome, great advice, Shadia.
Well, I pretty much summed up what Christian said, but I think the main point is it may seem like you're really alone and isolated out there, but you will find your tribe and you will find your people. And I know that the ICANN network have done a lot of work in providing support for LGBT individuals. There are more organizations out there now that are providing support for both intersections and having more training done to help be aware of the intersection and autistic LGBT individuals. And I think reaching out and finding support, whether it's through these organisations or something like Minus 18, or even you could, if you go to a secondary school or tertiary education setting, you could even find out if they have a specific society there, because a lot of them have support there. You just have to sometimes look a bit and find it. But yeah, that would be my thing. Don't panic, because I thought that I would never find people like me, and now I'm surrounded by them and I'm really happy. So if I could go back and tell my 13-year-old self that, I wish I could, but maybe I can for some other teens. So yeah, just take your time. Don't panic. It's far better waiting for the right people than rushing a friendship or something else and not finding the right people for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and also to add on to that, Shadia, like not finding yourself. If you're running to kind of fit in with other people, then you risk not being able to find yourself or delaying that, which you might choose to do that, and that's fine. But I think that eventually, I think it's really important to be able to explore your identity in an open way, in a way that's not, oh well, I can't look over here, I can't go this way. I just don't want to be that, and so I'm not going to go there, but I'll explore over this direction, because I think that it's lying to yourself. At least, yeah, I think my one piece of advice would be that probably, similar to what both of you have said, like it's normal to try and to struggle with your identity. It's like a very characteristic part of being an adolescent and being a young adult as well. There's people well into their 30s that are still struggling with their identity and what place they have and what their role in society. So it's not unusual to struggle with your identity at all, especially in high school. I think everyone struggles with their identity in high school, and those who have found it, it's, I think you said this before as well, Shadia, like it's not a linear process. Like someone might seem like they have an identity, and then a few years later something will happen and they are forced to think about it again and look at themselves in the mirror again and wonder what their identity is and what their role is in society. So I suppose my advice would be, like enjoy exploring your identity, because it's fun and there'll be good times and bad times, but ultimately every step you take is a step forwards.
Absolutely.
And it's a journey. It's the journey, not the destination so much. I think when I finally let go of putting pressure on myself to find a label that fit perfectly, I started having a lot more fun and feeling a lot more disinhibited, and I enjoy kind of playing around with my identity. And I think being comfortable in myself means that I'm able to kind of give more out to the world in an authentic way and feel good about what I'm putting out into the world. So,
I much the same. When I realized I was non-binary, it kind of removed any preconceptions I had. Like I was always like, well, I'm not like other girls, so I'm not going to wear makeup, and I really worried about, well, if I do this then people see me this way. And then when I let it go, I actually was a lot more open to exploring aspects of myself and expressing myself through makeup, all that sort of thing, clothing. And I realized that it's a much nicer way to live than always constantly worrying about what other people are thinking of you. And a lot of people get it now and some people don't, and you learn over time how to manage that. But self-acceptance is, really the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, that should be the goal. That should be the what you're striving towards, rather than self-understanding, because it's hard. Self-acceptance is really, really important. And having a community, surround yourself with people that accept you for who you are. Surround yourself with good people. And you know how they are. They're the people that lift you up. They're the people that don't try and bring you down. They're the people that kind of have your back when you're feeling down, and we'll want to lift you up. I think keep those people close.
Yeah, and not everyone in the sorry.
No. I was just going to say, yeah, stop trying to impress those other people because they're never going to be impressed. They're just impossible to please. Whereas the ones that, do accept you and do love you don't need you to impress them. Such a, such much better life to live. So yeah, that would be my advice.
And not everyone that you'll encounter in the autistic or LGBT spaces you'll necessarily get along with, and it's not that you don't belong in that community, it's just we're human beings and we're not going to always get along with every single person. And there might be allies and things you get along with too. Don't need to write them off as well.
Awesome. Well, I think that was the last question. I think that was a really constructive discussion. Had lots of fun. It's very nice. It's really nice talking about the intersection of identities, I think, with other people that share them. So yeah, that was great. That was great fun. Yeah. Does anyone have any final thoughts? I'm thinking if there's anything specifically that was missed, but I feel like we did a fairly good cover. The only thing I would add one thing, which was just to touch again on the health professionals thing. Finding a good doctor or psychologist or counselor, whoever it may be, it can make life a whole lot easier. So don't be afraid. Like, if you are not getting along, if you don't feel comfortable talking to a healthcare professional, if you can, try and find a new one and post questions in the discussion group like us. Reach out to your support network, whether it's on social media or through the resources that Shadia recommended, like Why Gender or -18, plus more.
Yeah, people can watch back, and the resources that you both gave are really fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much for those. And I had lots of fun doing this. So yeah, thank you so much for doing it with me.
Cool. All right. Thank you both, and I will see you again at some point soon.
Thanks, Sam.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.